Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, as always, Alex, and with me I have Logan. How are you, Logan?
Doing all right, Alex. Good evening. It's good to be chatting at such a positive time of the year and a sterling occasion on the back of two very important victories.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's a little bit unexpected in some ways as a City supporter to actually have the results going our way. I know we're sort of talking in our group chat, making sort of comparisons to that 12-13 season with Bruce, and just the fact that, we only needed the one win towards the end of that season to go up, but results just wouldn't fall our way. But look, they certainly fell our way over the Easter period, I guess, starting with that Crewe result. Was looking for all money to be the third 1-1 draw in a row, and then Wilkes pulls something special out with his non-preferred, if he doesn't mind, to get us the 2-1 win. What did you make of that game?
Yeah, exactly that. It was a huge moment from Wilkes, and I think that although you can probably make a lot of comments about that game, it was a real footballing contest. Without to throw out too many cliches, like it really did just have that feel that both teams almost cancelled each other out. They were a tough side to beat, Crewe, and the way they set up against us, they really threatened us and made us, uncomfortable at large periods of that game. And as you said, they really didn't feel at any stage in that the back end of that second half that there was going to be a late winner. And so when it happened, obviously it was pleasantly surprising for the City faithful, but all the more important because of the results that were, that happened simultaneously. But Malik Wilkes, what a strike. And I guess for himself having a rather quiet game, it's just a huge moment that, speaks into the caliber of player he is and just understanding how much of a threat he really is and how important he is to our promotion or perhaps title hopes.
Yeah, look, I mean, that was my sense with Wilkes as well. It seemed like an almost game for him. For a lot of the game, he'd get the ball at feet. He'd do really well with his control or build up or passing the ball off to teammates, but wasn't really getting many looks at goal himself. So the fact that he was able to pop up, and with those sorts of players, it just takes that moment, and you just get that half chance, and he finds the back of the net. Look, even at 0-0, you sort of talk about the teams cancelling themselves out or each other out. It felt like 0-0 or a 1-0 felt like a fair result. Obviously, each side got a penalty to get us to that 1-1 scoreline. I mean, look, maybe we talk about those penalty incidents now. I mean, we had a few shouts for penalties turned down, and in a lot of ways, I was surprised that we got the penalty when we did, because it does feel, and I from memory, there's a few times in that Northampton game as well, it does feel as if for City, it takes a whole lot to get the referee to award a penalty.
Absolutely. They seemed very hard to come by. And I do remember two critical shouts off the top of my head in the Crewe game that were almost stone cold penalties. I know that it's hard to kind of, speak when you watch the games through such biased City lenses, but trying to be objective here. You've seen them given against us a lot, and just it doesn't always feel like that in League One. Maybe that does have something to do with the fact that we are kind of the big fish in the pond, if that's a fair statement. And perhaps match officials know that almost every manager that is on the receiving end of a defeat to us seem to come out and make comments about them. Oh, City got lucky, or maybe they're not that good, except for obviously the Northampton manager said some incredibly positive things after we dusted them. But yeah, it does have that feeling, doesn't it, that there's an element of bias against us, or perhaps we're not the most welcome team in the division. So
yeah, and it's weird as well, particularly with Wilkes. I've noticed it quite a lot with Wilkes, where it's odd because it's not like he has a reputation for being a diver. Like I'm sure he's gone down easily like most other players, but it's not as if he has any sort of standout moments that I can think of. But the number of penalties or fouls on him or half fouls on him that get waved off just seems really surprising. It sort of reminds me of Sterling in the Premier League and a few of those other guys who they sort of get an unwarranted reputation. I mean, maybe in fairness, in Sterling's case, it's maybe a bit more warranted, but players sort of get that reputation. But it's just a weird one with Wilkes, because I can't think of any reason why he so often gets ignored by the referees.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Wilfred Zaha is another player I think that fits that category, that you do see teams, willingly seem to hack them and get away with it. And maybe that does speak into the fact that, he does go down a lot. But I think they make a point of it. And as you mentioned with Malik Wilkes, he is such a dangerous attacker particularly when he runs at defenders, and when he gets into the box, it's almost as if the ball kind of sticks to his feet. And you see all these defenders almost, fixated on him, and multiple bodies surround him. And there's always seems to be some, point of contact where one of the defenders dives in and he does go down. And I think, because there is multiple bodies, that's the only thing that I can think of that may be one of those reasons that the referees are a bit more reserved, hesitant to blow the whistle. But yeah, absolutely, I think that Malik Wilkes does have that in his game, and it would be nice to see a few of them go away. And I guess the law of averages speaks into that. Maybe we've got a couple of important Malik Wilkes penalties in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I was going to say Malik Wilkes or Josh Magenis, who just, he's so confident with his penalties, scoring that equaliser for us against Crewe, just absolutely lathered it into the back of the net. You love a penalty taker with that sort of confidence. Absolutely. And I guess that, as you mentioned with Magenis, he's a totally different threat as well. Like, as someone who's such a physical presence, if you think of him in contrast with the type of player that Malik Wilkes is, where he's got more of a, fast feet and it tends to really take the ball at defenders, there's a lot to worry about if you're a defender versus the City lineup. And that's an exciting thing for us to understand and know that we have that in our arsenal. Absolutely. Well, before we go into that Northampton game, I'll give my MVP votes for this game. And a player that we haven't talked about, though, who I think played a really important role in getting us to win, was Ingram. I think he made some terrific saves in the game for me, so he got the 3 votes from me for this one. And then can't go past the match winner in Wilkes for the 2 votes for me. And Slater, again, another one I haven't mentioned yet, but I think growing in confidence with every start that he gets, and I'll probably talk about him a bit more in the Northampton game, but he's been looking terrific in midfield for us as well, so he'd get the 1 vote for me.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. I think I had Ingram down in my 3. I didn't give him the 3 points. I gave him 2, but I thought a man that was kind of glossed over then was Louis Coyle. His form lately has been outstanding, and I guess an argument for Callum Elder as well. He's been playing, out of his skin. And those fullbacks have really come into their own. It's almost like a weekly discussion point. We've got Josh Emmanuel sitting on the bench. And Honeyman seems to be a staple whenever we talk 3-2-1s anyway. So I think that those guys were who I'd kind of, recognise. But as you mentioned, I thought Magenis, just getting the way that he slotted that penalty, and I think that was the turning point in the game that, that got us back into it, arguably before the Wilkes moment of brilliance. But between any of those 4s, I wouldn't be able to split the 3-2-1s.
So if you've gone for Ingram for your 2, who would you give your 3 to? Would you say Wilkes probably?
Yeah, I gave 1 point to Wilkes, even though I think that it was the clinical moment. And Louis Coyle was my 3. I think he's just been outstanding.
Yeah, no, good shout. Good shout on Coyle. I think, look, it's so easy in these sorts of wins to throw a blanket over a number of players who could all be well deserving of votes. And look, certainly that was the case in this Northampton game, winning 3-0. Coming into this one, I think, there's a bit of nerves for me, just in the sense of, Northampton aside fighting for survival, and our 2 big rivals in Peterborough and Sunderland playing at the same time. And look, we'll talk about their results as a collective in a second, but it's the sort of game where you look at it and go, well, great, one of them's going to be dropping points for sure. But you can also look at the perspective that one of them's picking up points for sure as well. So if we were to lose to Northampton, it's certainly a dangerous position to be in. So that goal from Elder really settled those nerves, and it was a fantastic strike for him to get his first City goal on the 30-minute mark. And then KLP getting his goal as well just before halftime, making it 3 players for us on double figures for the season for the first time since 2003-04, which was fantastic as well. And White rounding it out just before the end of the game. So pretty comfortable game all in all. I don't know if they really had any shots in danger in this one. So it was a comfortable but professional performance, and really shows that City have that mentality that they're looking to sew up promotion and potentially the title as well.
Absolutely. I think one of the key elements for me as well is, even thinking back to just the last couple of weeks, I know that we've had some pretty cool games and snuck some draws, but I think that the period of rest that we've been able to having kind of had those games ahead and really got time to freshen the legs and make some critical subs in games as well. I really thought that was probably one of I guess, the hidden traits of this game that really stood out. I thought that having 2 games in really close proximity, with the Northampton game, knowing that, the legs might have been tight, I think it was really obvious that we had fresh legs in the squad, because we just hadn't been playing, so many games in such a condensed or concentrated period. So I think that might have spoke a lot into the way that we played, because, I mean, you commented in our chat very early on in the game. I think it was about 4 or 5 minutes in. I think you said we look locked in here, and that's what I felt for the entire game. It really was. It was almost a strange feeling to watch City play for 90 minutes and never really feel any threat of losing the match. And I mean, I kind of picked that up even in the commentary. There was almost a sense of arrogance, but there wasn't too many key moments that kind of scared us, or you thought, oh, if they concede here, the momentum will shift. They just seemed to be this real professional and I guess focused or concentrated performance from City, and across the board we were too good. And it's we don't often say that, but it was certainly the case on the weekend. Easter Monday.
Yeah. I mean, look, I did say we looked locked in, and I think you comment on the fact that Doherty in particular was terrific with his run in midfield, and again, Elder with the goal and with the assist for White right at the end there. But look, as you say, with the fresh legs, you make note of the fact that it was around the 70-minute mark or so. We did a triple substitution. We essentially subbed off our front 3 with a completely fresh front 3, who on another day could have been our starting front 3. And I think that's sort of we're sort of showing our strength in depth in this division that not many other sides are able to do. So it gives us that great depth and ability to rotate and keep the squad fresh. I guess the big concern as well is the injuries potentially to Honeyman and Greaves, who both went off late in the game with knocks. I haven't seen a whole lot more on it, so I'm hoping it's not too serious for Honeyman. Though, of course, as we sort of said, and we've said before, you and me, Crawley was brought into the team, or Crowley was brought into the team to basically be that backup option for Honeyman. It's not the end of the world. I mean, obviously, Honeyman's a fantastic player. He's one of our brightest players this season, but it's not panic stations if he is out for 2 or 3 games, since we do have these sorts of players who can step into the breach.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think I was just about to comment on Regan Slater's form as well. What a performance he had in the last 2 games as well. Like, he was a relatively unknown signing, or one that we didn't expect to bring in. I knew that there was comments about us getting a Premier League player in, but to see the impact that he had, he's been largely absent this season, and for him to come in at this point in time, almost as a surprise to us as well, and to have the impact on the games that he's been having, I thought he was outstanding against Northampton as well. Looks someone who's inspired and full of running. The post-match conference with Grant McCann, he didn't seem to be too worried about George Honeyman or Alfie Jones. So, Greg, sorry. And so, knowing at least that's the initial reaction, that sounds incredibly positive. So, if there's any silver lining, well, that would be it. And we do hope that those 2 players are fit and ready for the trip to Plymouth.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, I mean, Slater's an interesting one, because he sort of reminds me, his progression at City sort of reminds me of Honeyman as well, where last season Honeyman was sort of seen as very ineffective, but had a lot of effort. He ran around a lot. So he was sort of, full of energy and full of motivation and trying to make an impact, but just couldn't do it. And Slater at the start of the season, I felt sort of similar about that. He came in and he did try and he did run around a lot and he did look promising, but he just wasn't seeming to have an impact on matches. And these last few starts that he's had, he's certainly starting to have an impact. And whether it's just that he's finding his feet at this level, got that confidence because he's getting the regular starts, I think it's all helping him. And he's really been impressive the last few games. And he's another one where you sort of think, yes, okay, we've had Smallwood go out for the season. We've had Jones go back into defence to make up for Burke going out. All of a sudden, we've sort of unearthed this option in Slater, who's a very comfortable starter for us. And look, it's going to be really interesting. I find it really interesting because there was an interview with him recently talking about the situation at Sheffield United, and it must be a really weird one for him being on loan at a League One club from a Premier League club, knowing almost certainly that they'll be in the same division next season. So whether that means that there's an opportunity for him at Sheffield United, whether that means that we buy him or take him on loan again. I'm not sure. But it must be a very interesting sort of prospect for him this summer on what his future is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a common situation,
Yeah.
and certainly an intriguing prospect. I mean, even you just mentioning that now, I would be very intrigued to see what comes of it. But I guess that raises a big question as well. Is he someone on the radar that we would be looking to sign? Has he done enough in this short space of time, to warrant a championship contract? There's so many unknowns, and I think that's an exciting prospect of what happens over the next 5-6 games. Just seeing what does end up resting in City's fate, and then where the club goes from there. There's some really big decisions to be made.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think, a month ago you would have said that he's sort of nowhere near it for us, but I think certainly the last couple of games have raised a case for a potential transfer in the summer. But look, I think there's 5 or 6 games left to go before we focus too much on that. Well, how about just quickly, did you want to give your 3-2-1 votes for this game before we move on, and then I'll give mine?
Yeah, I think the really obvious 3 points here is Callum Elder. I think that goal was brilliant, and then the assist at the end for Gavin White. He has been really impressive lately, Callum Elder, and it's great for us as Australians to be supporting City and seeing one of our own doing such a fine job. So he was my standout 3 points. I gave Doherty 2 points. I thought he was fantastic as well, and then 1 point to Louis Coyle. I thought he was brilliant. It was one of those performances where you could have given it to a lot of people, but the thing that I loved so much about City's play was just the ability to dribble at defenders. Like Northampton obviously gave us the space with our fullbacks to get forward, which we know is a worrying prospect. But just to see the evolution of this City squad from earlier on in the season, where the blueprint was if you shut our fullbacks down, that's it. We can't really play. To see the confidence that our front three are playing with, and to have those bodies coming, starting from deep and really just making defenses struggle and have to work to contain us. It's great to see.
And look, now he's keeping Emmanuel out of the side, who for a large portion of that early season was sort of in the conversation for player of the season. So it's no mean feat from Coyle, and he's also putting together a fantastic season. Look, I can't argue with your 3 on Elder. I've gone Elder as well for my 3 votes. I've gone for KLP as my 2, just because I think that his attacking play of the front 3 seemed to be the most promising and the most cohesive for us. So I thought he put in a really dominant display, and obviously got his goal as well, which was fantastic. And then, I've gone Doherty for the 1, because I think, agreeing with you, I think he had a really terrific game in the midfield, and sort of set the tone from the start of the game, which was great. Okay, well, let's have a quick chat then about our rivals, because obviously the Peterborough-Sunderland game was on at the same time, and you did allude to, while we were talking about the Crewe-Alexandra game, so Peterborough, I believe, Sunderland were behind to Oxford early in that game, and then came back to win 3-1 with 2 late goals. And Peterborough also managed to get ahead in their game quite late on as well. So timing-wise of us getting the winner against Crewe, really important, considering those two also pulled ahead at almost the same time. So interesting moments at halftime in the Sunderland game, with, I think, an assistant coach for Sunderland perhaps being in an altercation with an Oxford player. So who knows if something comes from that. And then, of course, as I sort of said before, so Peterborough playing Sunderland at the same time we were playing Northampton, and drawing 1-1. So, apart from obviously them both losing on the weekend to Oxford and Fleetwood, I think they're about as good results as we could hope for. Both of them, dropping points against each other yesterday morning bodes well for us. I think we're now 3 points clear of Peterborough with the game in hand. We're Sunderland are 2 games in hand on us, but 5 points behind. You could look as far back as Blackpool with 3 games in hand on us, so really sort of coming home hard. But I suspect it's sort of a 3-horse race for the automatic spots.
Yeah, it would take something special from Blackpool to get back into the conversation. I guess that the exciting thing for us is that if Blackpool do get into the conversation, it probably means that they've beat Sunderland twice. So they're going to be taking points off each other, which is exactly what happened in the Sunderland Peterborough fixture. And because we've got the luxury of not really having to play those teams, except for the massive fixture with Sunderland. If Blackpool would have beat Sunderland once, and we would have take points from if we were to beat Sunderland and Blackpool were to beat them once, that's probably the 6 points.
That's weird.
That that having already got a 5-point lead, that that would make up that deficit and make it incredibly hard for Sunderland to catch us, and then for Blackpool to overtake us would almost be unheard of. So, look, I think that again, speaking of run-ins, that Blackpool fixture, they would be the team that you would not want to have to cross, and the fact that Sunderland have got them twice is fantastic.
Yeah. Definitely. No, and I think I saw Rick posted on Twitter saying that essentially, look, at the end of the day, if we win our 6 games, we're up, because it means that we're beating Sunderland. It means that we've got that gap over them. And of course, yeah, look, I think if they drop even a single game to Blackpool or to somebody else, then it's done. So it is getting to that point of the season. It is getting quite, 6 games left. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
And also, Alex, let's not forget that you've got to throw in teams like Lincoln, Charlton, Doncaster, who feature heavily in all of the run-ins for not just us, but also for our rival teams. And those are clubs that are going to be incredibly difficult to beat as well. So it is really intriguing, because you remember that they will now have a fight to make the playoffs, which is another one of the storylines that is happening while we focus on promotion firstly, but also the chance of being title winners.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think the title's in our hands essentially. I think the drop points in Peterborough certainly mean that the title's essentially in our hands, because we've got that game against Sunderland to come. And look, it's gonna be really exciting in a couple of weeks when we play Lincoln. I think that's, even optimistically speaking, I think that's sort of the earliest that we could potentially mathematically make it a certainty to go up. And for everyone based in Sydney, we are looking to get a good showing out at Cheers that night for that game, as it'll be on at midnight. So looking forward to that one, and hopefully results going our way to make that a certainty. Well, let's round things off by looking at the Plymouth game to come. Probably not a whole lot to say about this one that we don't usually say, as far as, it'll be a tricky game. They've got 2 wins in their last 5 and did lose to Shrewsbury yesterday morning, so not in fantastic form. We haven't played them since, it was like back in October we played them, and it was Adelican who got the winner in that one with a 10th minute goal. So it's been a fair while between games against them. Much like the Northampton game, I'm sort of viewing this as very much should be a win, and it's just about putting in a professional performance and getting the win in that one. No midweek game for us, obviously played the Monday, and then no game the following midweek either. So we've still got that little bit of a break between games to get the players right and right and rested, in the case of someone like a Honeyman perhaps, who may well get rested for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the most concerning thing about Plymouth is there's a lot of discussion and talk about their home form, and the fact that we do have that long trip away is probably the most crucial factor in this one. The concern is that, whilst it looks like they're not really in a precarious position for relegation or challenging for the playoffs, the argument can be made that, they don't have all that much to play for. But, they'd be hurting after that 3-0 loss to Shrewsbury, which, it's probably come at the wrong time for us, in the sense that, they'll be very eager to get back into the winner's circle and right the wrongs from that performance. So it's going to be a really testing trip. But, if City go there and play with the same level of confidence that we saw against Northampton, then I do struggle to see how a team, that far down the table will be able to compete with us, even on their home patch. And, and so it should be. If we're, are going to be title contenders, then we need to make sure that these trips away are fixtures where we are taking all 3 points.
And I guess, so I guess the biggest talking points about our lineup probably come in the form of whether Reece Burke is fit, which I think, I suspect is probably a little bit too early for him, and whether Honeyman and Greaves drop out. I mean, I guess, look, if Greaves was to drop out, and you did say that McCann was a bit relaxed on that one, it would be interesting, because it opens the door for McLaughlin. And for all our talk of our depth, it does mean that we're sort of starting to get to the bare bones at centre back. But in all likelihood, Greaves will be okay for that one. Perhaps Honeyman gets rested just out of precautionary. We've got the form of Slater and Doherty in there, and as I said, we've got Crowley, we've got Flores, we've got a few others who can certainly drop into that midfield spot as well. So certainly have a few options, and whilst you don't want to flirt with your form in reasonably important game such as this, you got to have one eye, I suspect, on the coming game with Sunderland as well as probably the more important fixture to have the players fit for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I do think with this, like I said, we've just come off the period of having a pretty decent rest, despite having 2 games in quick succession. So I think that just given the magnitude of League One and how thick and fast the games do come, I don't think that there'll be a huge desire for McCann to shake things up too much. I think he would understand the importance of 3 points at Plymouth. I think it doesn't really matter where you get your points at the moment, just so long as they're ticking over. I mean, there's a great case to say that you want to win those 6 pointers, and obviously we do, but in so many ways, if we can beat the teams without that aren't even our rivals, then we're probably still going to find ourselves in definitely the top 2 positions, and that's a really comforting position to be in. So I don't expect or envisage too much of a change with McCann's squad, except for, as you mentioned, if there's any forced changes through injury. But there's no one who's really sitting in the side at the moment who you think probably on form is warranted to kind of drop out. Everyone seems to be doing their job, pretty well, with the inclusion of, as we said, Slater seems to have forced his way into that starting lineup and made it his own. But I don't expect to see much change, and that's a really good thing for us this late in the season.
Absolutely. I think we're on 3 wins out of the 5 that at the time you predicted we'd need to go up. So we've got 2 more to come. Jeez, a bit of lightning around here. I don't know if it comes onto the mic, but there you go. So let's. I'll probably try and wrap things up in a second. Then. So what do you predict the scoreline for this one to be?
Yeah, I think this one could be 2-0 to City. I really struggle to see how Plymouth are going to hurt us. I think that we've got momentum, and it's such a crucial game, and it does seem like the lads are really up for it. Interestingly, Callum Elder mentioned in his press conference that in his time at City, it's the most together the dressing room's been, and that feel-good factor to me, the fact that he's making a statement like that in his press conference, really speaks into not only the results that seem to be going our way. It's easy to be happy when you're winning, but it just seems like they're really locked in on the task. And I can't see Plymouth giving us too many struggles, except for the fact that obviously it's that challenge of travelling to their place where they do have quite good form. So yeah, as I said, 2-0 City. I'm going to be positive on this one.
I'll go with 2-0 City as well on that one. So look, before my dogs tear the door down, I might rush off there. And thank you for coming on, Logan.
My pleasure, Alex. And let's hope next time we're chatting, we're preparing for that cheer celebration.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for listening in on this one. And until next time,